Happy full moon in Virgo on February 24th, 2024. How exciting. So I thought I would give a little bit of a recap on what the full moon is in Virgo, what the energy around us probably collectively is, and then pull some tarot cards and oracle just for the collective for this full moon. So keep in mind, full moon energy is typically 3 days before the full moon, the day of, and the day after. So it can stretch out to about 7 days, that full moon energy. I don't know about you guys, but typically 3 days, within 3 days before the full moon, I usually have at least one night that's restless, and it's like, oh my God, when am I gonna sleep? And I think I'm kind of like charged up and all that fun stuff. So I'm gonna go through some notes. So you'll watch me kind of go through notes while I explain some stuff here. But so yes, today is the actual day of the full moon in Virgo, and it's at 5 degrees. So the full moon is when the sun opposes the moon at the exact degree, shining light on the moon, and then the moon, it illuminates and reflects it back to the sun. It's a high point of the moon cycle and a release point. So sun and moon at opposition points is always a bit of a tension, kind of, typically. And the vocabulary for full moons is usually themes around release, completion, illumination. As we know, full moons can affect us on a physical level, not just the emotional, spiritual, mind level. Because it is the closest heavenly body to our planet, it does have a lot of play on our gravitational pull, as we know, with our waters and all that. Moon cycles with women. The moon plays a lot of factors more than we probably know or even give credit to. Full moons are often a great time to release, let go, charge, have gratitude for what's abundant in your life, just like that big bull moon in the sky, shining nice and bright. It's full of something, right? So quite often people will charge or cleanse their crystals or their tarot cards or anything in the full moon. So that's a great time to do that. So the full moon in Virgo's theme can be noted as kind of like a huge cleansing portal. And I'm going to explain a lot of details that it'll all make sense here shortly. But the full moon's themes are usually around releasing. And Virgo, in its astrological sign, it rules cleansing, cleanliness, detox, order, practicality. Basically, those words specifically, when it comes to cleanliness, Virgo rules cleansing of the physical body and or of the earthly aspects. So keep that in mind. Virgo is a mutable earth sign, meaning that it's quite adaptable and fluid. It just goes with the flow. They have the ability to really organize, find logic, and find what works and what doesn't, and to be detail-oriented, tweak things for improvement. That's a really strong trait of Virgo. So interestingly, not too long ago, I actually read an article that astrologers are actually considering changing the planetary ruler of Virgo. And this is going to be really fascinating and make sense a little bit down the line here. So right now, the planetary ruler for Virgo is Mercury. Mercury is also shared with Gemini. Gemini, that's their ruler. So Virgo having a ruler of Mercury, that's your thoughts, communications, but kind of detail oriented. So taking that communication, that input, and say applying it into logic, formations, data, entry, organizational charts. So kind of taking all that thoughts, communication, knowledge, and applying it onto the earthly level, if that makes sense. So interestingly enough, they've been thinking of that the new planetary ruler for Virgo should be the asteroid Chiron. So the interesting thing with Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And so Virgo and Chiron share some similarities in that sense. So Virgos are very detailed orientated and a natural perfectionist. They want to be of service. Being of service for them also comes from that wounded past, that experience in life. So they come from something that they've learned and they want to perfect and teach and almost do like the preventative of learn through me, like this is how I fixed this or tweaked this or improved it or what I've experienced, so this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's kind of an act of service coming from the past of being a wounded warrior. Virgo placements are actually quite tough. I don't think they're recognized or given the acknowledgement that they deserve, that they've been through tough pasts. So therefore, Chiron is almost like the archetype of Virgo, and that's why that's in debate. Now, that's not happening right now, but it's an interesting point to bring in as we speak. And so Virgos want to be in a point of service. Being in service of having things in order and cleansed helps to keep pure and divine energy. So to have a pure mind, body, and spirit offers us great health, and it's something of purity, divinity, its worth. That's what their acts of service is, to help showcase and help people with that. Now, the shadow aspects of Virgos are that they're perfectionists. They'll probably work themselves, they're workaholics, work themselves hard. They're harder on themselves than anyone else on being detailed, oriented, nitpicky, very consumed on trying to be the best and make it all perfect. Therefore, it can kind of bring down their self-esteem at a self-sabotage level, because they're their hardest critic versus anyone else. So they can have unrealistic standards. Now, when I say the shadow aspect of Virgo, that doesn't mean that Virgos are bad. Every aspect or every zodiac sign has their shadow or their downfall, their weakness, right? The sign of Virgo is represented by a virgin or a maiden holding a shaft of wheat, and that symbolizes the ability for her to separate the wheat from the shaft, which demonstrates the need to serve and the ability to do fine-tuning skills or jobs, tasks, to really be detailed orientated in that. Virgo, here's some words that might ring some bells to, if you know a Virgo, if you have Virgo placements or anything like that, is Virgos are very analytical and detail orientated. They're very organized. They like cleanliness and purity. These are the big themes for the full moon then, especially when the North Node is conjunct in Aries. So that's why I brought up the North Node conjunct Chiron in Aries is what I meant to say. And that's why I was bringing up Chiron, is that wounded healer theme is actually very prominent with this full moon, because the full moon is conjunct with Chiron, the North Node of the moon in Aries. So that's pretty interesting. Now, that brings up deep-seated wounds, pain, particularly in our body. And our body, keep in mind, that's earth sign. And Virgo is an earth sign. So it governs your body, your earthly kind of realm of things. So these are things that need to be illuminated via the moon. So you might find something that's illuminated or brought to surface through chaos or mayhem that's bringing to you to help release. So if you're familiar, if you have a birth chart or you go online and you know your date of birth, your location and time, you can enter this on and get a birth chart. Then I would encourage you to look and find 5 degrees in your birth chart of Virgo, where that lands, what house it lands, and that will give you a little bit of idea of what's being activated or highlighted in your life, possibly that needs to be more so addressed. You can look at also what planets you have in Virgo and or Pisces, because Pisces, the sun is in Pisces. And that's working with opposing to the moon, which is in Virgo. So keywords for Virgo again, and I'm going to continuously repeat these keywords so that you guys can go, oh, and find something that maybe you want to work on through this full moon. So keywords are cleanliness, practicality, details, and routines. Your day-to-day work, being of service, your physical health and nutrition, common sense, organization, and pets. So those are kind of all the realms that fall into the house of Virgo, what Virgo means, what it governs rather. And so any of these things, from your day-to-day routines, physical health, organization, pets, acts of service, anything like that could be very highlighted in your life, particularly in one area of your life if you have your birth chart, if you're fortunate for that. So now let's hop over to the sun. The sun is in Pisces. So Pisces is the last sign. So technically we're coming out of the Gregorian not the Gregorian calendar. Based on astrology, this is actually the end of the year as we go into Aries, the first zodiac sign, at the beginning of a new year. So this is technically the new year. Gregorian calendar will suggest January 1st, but if you follow astrology, you can really appreciate that we are actually, in fact, going into a new year because we're going into spring in the northern hemisphere here. We're going into changes with we're going into babies being born and freshness and greenness around the road, depending on where you live. But in saying that, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, so it's kind of the completion, and it's more of the spiritual realm. So think of the two fish floating through the waters, and it's affiliated with karma, so surrendering to the universe, going with the flow. And Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Neptune is the god of ocean, so again, like flow, everything's connected, divinely connected, and having that free-flowing understanding with that. So now Saturn is conjunct the sun. So what blocks do you have? It would be a great question. This is an opportunity to heal and face karma. So break down old cycles that no longer serve you. That translates to Pisces wants to merge with the divine. So think of Pisces in the heaven, kind of the heavens, going with the flow and kind of understanding everything's connected and being very divinely connected, just that feeling of that. And Virgo, so you have the feeling of the divine up here, and Virgo is the earth plane, doing the grounding, and so that you have that perfect connection of opposition, above and below. Or you could look at it as moon and the sun, or sun and the moon. And so when you have those divine connections like that, it helps to ground and balance mind, body, and spirit. And that is really ultimately what this full moon is calling for us, is to find what works for us, what doesn't, what no longer serves us, and to manifest and work with this energy to really cleanse our bodies and instill healthy routines and habits that best support us. The energy is really there. And what's even more exciting that I get super pumped about is the great news is that Jupiter is trine to the moon, which helps support these changes with enthusiasm to address all those issues. So Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system, and it's kind of like an amplifier. It accentuates and amplifies everything. And Jupiter is sitting in Taurus, which is the planet of kind of your being, the resources, the earth. And so think of like self-worth, because Taurus is also ruled by Venus, of all the things that kind of make you feel heavenly, enriched, and just indulging. And so self-worth, self-treatment, and that's another earth sign. So it's really greatly aspected to support us of, even if we have a lot of crap coming up, because the full moon will bring those opposing kind of those tension points, is Jupiter's there to support us with enthusiasm, to kind of accentuate and to kind of feel more encouraged to take these on and make changes. So the traumas and chaos that are here are basically here to be resolved. It's coming to the surface. So think of Saturn as the responsibility and accountability. It's kind of like the old grandfather sitting at the gate saying, you know, you need to learn this lesson, mature into it, and when you're ready, and be responsible, be accountable, own your stuff and deal with it so you can move on, because you don't want to just be piling on more and more, right? This calls for us to look after ourselves, get organized, look after any details. So reassess, do some grounding, think of practicality, new solutions, hidden light to understand things. So maybe something is going to come out that it's like, oh, there was something else that I could consider, so I should let this go and consider the other option. So think of boundaries and limitations, because Saturn is the gatekeeper, so he has boundaries and limitations. Do you see what you have and what serves and what can you get rid of? What no longer works for you, right? But don't get caught up in Virgo perfectionism is the best advice, because like I said, with the downfall, the shadow aspect is we might be hard on ourselves, self-critical, and want to take on a lot of stuff. And not only take on a lot of stuff, but really make it detailed, super organized, which there's nothing wrong with taking that on, but Virgo can be consumed and overwhelm themselves with that, because that's just what they want to do. They want to organize, they want to have everything, and nobody's perfect is ultimately what I'm trying to say. So in saying that, I would encourage you to ask yourself, what are 5 things that I love about myself, love and appreciate? Virgo needs to be reminded of that. And once you can identify those things, it helps with the things that you want to work on feel less overwhelming or burdening, upsetting. And then you can really pick, fine-tune things. So like, are you going to go clean every aspect and deep clean like crazy your house and let everything else fall apart? Or are you going to start with one thing like a closet or a pantry going through? Just like you wouldn't go and start doing all kinds of stuff with your body, overwhelming your body, of throwing all these new routines, these new workouts, these new diets and this and this and this, where it's almost setting yourself up for unrealistic success. It's not going to go that way, and it might flop and become a failure where you're more hard on yourself. So start with something small, practical. So these are some goals to consider. How can I practically take care of myself? What do we need to change or organize in our lives today? And how can I balance my mind, body, and spirit? And is one outweighing the other? Because maybe we're overwhelmed with our focusing too much on our body. We're going and working out and everything else is falling apart. Or maybe consume too much in the spiritual world and we need to come down a little bit into the physical. That's also can happen. Now, an interesting note, just to share if you're into numerology. So it's the second month of the 24th day of 2024. So that reduces to the number 20. And 20 in angel numbers, if you follow, is the sign of divinity. So follow your dreams. And with tarot, that falls into the awakening, the judgment card. And the awakening, so that's a judgment with a kind of angel being with the wings, with a trumpet blasting, and there's people coming out of coffins. Some are laying in there, some are naked, some are vulnerable, ready to take on. So it's the judgment of what are you willing to let go and leave behind, to own and say, this is no longer for me, and what are you willing to step into and be vulnerable and say, I'm ready for this new change. So that is the energy around this beautiful full moon in Virgo. It's such an opportunity to be practical, to think of health and routine, your body, so to detox and cleanse. This is a very well supported time for that, and to deal with old wounds and traumas. Maybe there's some generational stuff, some family stuff. This is a perfect time to focus on that. So I'm going to ask for the universe collectively, what is the energy and best advice for us for this full moon? And let's see, I have softly, the tender touch. So number 20. Whoa, check that out. That's super powerful. Softly, the tender touch. Number 20. You can't make that up, can you? And then there's a second card that came out, and I asked, and yes, you're taking it. Visions of life beyond death. Check that out. So I'm going to stare at this. So the first thing that comes with this softly, tender touch. This woman's super emotional, but she has the lotus on her head, so that symbolism of divinity and being connected. This feels very Neptunian. But it's also calling in that kind of wounded healer. She's emotional. She's got tears. And it's kind of calling in, and I feel like the throat chakra is very activated here. She's very much calling in and holding with her hands kind of over her throat chakra in the middle is a lotus, and then that's very spiritual healing, spiritual awakening. And it's be kind to yourself and recognize nobody's perfect and everything takes time, and that you have all the ideas, the you know what you need to do, and you just need to focus on it and work one day at a time, one step at a time, and step into that healing that really needs to be done, that releasing that needs to be done. And then visions of life beyond death. So this is kind of like visions. So when we let things go, we're letting them go to die. So whether it's a fear, something that no longer serves you in your life, whether that's a job, a relationship, or something simple of daily routine that's not doing you any good, or maybe you need to put in something. But when things die, there's life after death and opportunities. And look at this, such powerful birds, from the owl to the peacock to the raven. And these are all divine messengers just telling us, you know, visions of life beyond death, that there's opportunities and wisdom and guidance and supports that come through, that we will be supported through this. I'm going to pull a little bit of tarot. What's really interesting is that 44 number reduces to 8, and 8 is the house of Scorpio, which is transformation and death and rebirth. So it's exactly that. Those peacock feathers in this card, they have eyes everywhere. So think of bird feathers. They're symbolism of wisdom, of support, of the heavens, spirituality. So those eyes are just that, like, all-knowing of spiritual divine connectedness and how everything's connected. And it's a dance that we have to do together to help release limitations. So we have the Strength card. That's a Leo card. And then we have the Page of Cups, followed by Three of Swords. So this 8, or the number 8, but the Strength card is very much just taming that inner beast and that fear, or that and having some strength and some courage to deal with everything. She's very enlightened. She knows everything, and no normal person would put their hands in the mouth of a lion or a tiger or anything like that, any beast for that matter. But this would have took time to tame this and to be okay with that. So to be gentle with yourself, be calm and gentle with yourself, and know it takes some work, but that it's okay, and to have that strength. And when we have that strength, then there'll be like an opportunity for some new growth, something that will emotionally kind of come out at a surprise for us, that might be that cup, that little gift, that's something that we needed to kind of push in some excitement, some ambition, some self-care and self-love, some fulfillment, emotional fulfillment. And it's going to be a surprise, like what's in that cup, a fish, like. And then we have the Three of Swords, which is kind of a death of something, and that just vision of life beyond death, that just kind of tells us, that re-emphasizes that yes, when we let go of something, it's dying, but with dying there always comes healing. And it might feel traumatic, because that's usually what Three of Swords, it feels like extreme heartache and loss, and we might all feel a little bit overwhelmed with things in the world, how the world's going today. But to have visions of life beyond whatever we're letting go, to recognize that there will be extra, something really great coming. So we might have to let go of what we've all known, or thought to believe, because this is thoughts and communication. So this might be, we're going to have to reevaluate how we process thoughts and communications, and how we, okay, so that message is coming in strong. However, we're self-talking with our self-love or lack thereof, that we have to be mindful of that. Our thoughts are creating more than what we realize. And when I keep looking at all this and everything, those birds are really prominent, and that was the affirmation or confirmation that I needed, was our thoughts attract and they do more than what we realize. So start doing self-check with how we do self-talk and what we apply in our day-to-day living. That's pretty strong. So having boundaries and limitations maybe on our negative self-talk, of having tools of how do we stop that, that is very prominent, because this, as I'm talking, it's like negative self-talk. So what are you going to say and do? Maybe it's like a ritual or a journaling of how to get that out of, we're human, we need to have an outlet of how to dump. But then how are we going to heal? Because we need to heal that. How are we going to, if you're mad at your spouse or yourself, or you think this and this and this, all these negative things, how are we going to heal that? And we've dumped it, but now how are we going to heal it? And what are we going to do to put into action to now have strength and courage to change the narrative? That's pretty powerful. There you go, guys. So I hope you have a wonderful full moon in Virgo, and enjoy the next few days after here, because that energy is certainly there. So take care, and we'll chat soon. Bye.